mandatory that political campaigns or slogans should not be tainted with abusive languages, directly or indirectly likely to injure or religious, ethnic, and tribal sections or sentiments of the people. Therefore, campaigning should be devoid of abusive, intemperate, slanderous, or base language. And meanwhile, and again, the INEC has warned that it may prosecute political parties. But again, the question we're asking is, how can we make this possible in Rivers State? I have another set of guests joining us right now, and again, we'll be entertaining all calls on this. The State Director, National Orientation Agency, Rivers State, Young Ayotamalo, is joining us. Hello, good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on Point Blank.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
And from the civil society, we have the Public Relations Officer of the Civil Liberties Organization, CLO, Sunny Dada. Sunny Dada, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Segun, and good morning to Rivers people.
So again, gentlemen, I believe you've been listening to a politician, and the last guest was is a politician, and he's been speaking from the point of view of the politician. And he has spoken concerning his own political party. He said, yes, for his political party, they are ready to focus on issue-based campaign. But he fears, and the fear is, what about the other political parties and what is likely to come from the other political parties? Let me come to Sunny Dada. Sunny Dada, this is what Rivers people need at this time, issue-based. But again, what are your fears, and relating it to what the last politician said?
Yeah, once again, good morning. I share in his fears. If you recall, CLO has raised several alarm on these issues. As a matter of fact, we have started beating the war drums. And within the last 2-3 years, we have recorded some of these challenges in terms of our electioneering language, electioneering communication. And in fact, recently we have even documented some of the conflict triggers that are present in the electioneering discourse as we have them. I have divided them across parties, especially the two major political parties. In terms of conflict language that we have recorded, we have heard use of phrases like thunder fire them or thunder fire you. We have heard statements like I am in charge, come and campaign here, let me see. We have also heard war songs, and this is across board, you know, war songs in political gathering. We have also heard statements like brick and mortar governance, statements like our husband has gone mad again. Somebody using Olaro Timi's book to describe, you know, a governor, or a high-profile politician. I want us to stay on the issues. I want us to avoid
mentioning names, which is crucial.
Yeah, so that we don't make it personal issues. Then we have also seen symbols in their communication. Symbols like use of ethnicity, using maybe the size of your ethnic nationality, you know, to make a point, such as Obiakpo has 600,000 registered voters or 600,000 electoral votes. If I have Obiakpo, I know that I have the state. What do you call it? They are now playing ethnic politics. That is referring to recent movements from across political divides, especially from Opopo in Koro Aziz, where you have many politicians, you know, moving from Opopo to a particular direction, to a particular political party, and you hear narratives like, ethnic politics that won't play, we will show them, you know, after 2023, we will show them how to play ethnic politics. Then songs like Pepper Them, A Biggie Man, you know, these are songs that, you know, drives, or they are triggers. We call, in conflict language, we call them triggers. Things that could, you know, trigger conflict, trigger violence, and all of that. So we have noted all of this, and we are already embarking on our Political Enlightenment Committee is already, we are commencing engagement, constructive engagement with political parties, and part of our intention is to put these things before them, let them see, let them know that Rivers people are documenting what is going on. So that you don't just come on air and say things like we're in a society where there is no rule of law, in a society where you can't be held accountable for things you say, so that they will also know that they have to be careful. There are individuals and institutions and organizations that are documenting what they are saying. The essence is to ensure that at the end of the day, we have a violent-free electioneering process. Usually, the election cycle has 3 windows. So we're in the first window now, which is the pre-election cycle, pre-election window, then the election itself, then the post-election window. So we are aware that usually in the pre-election window, you have very, very combative languages, assertive languages. You see political actors being very combative in their nature and all of that. Thankfully, if you look at the candidates that have emerged so far from across the political parties, thankfully, we can't link them to any violent antecedents. However, we are worried. We're worried because their promoters have, very, very violent antecedents. So even though the candidates may not be linked to violent antecedents, if their promoters have such links, at the end of the day, if we are not careful, we may go into another round of violence and all of that. We don't want to witness what we witnessed in 2019. We don't want to witness what we witnessed in 2015. We also don't want to witness I heard the conversation that earlier took place. Your last speaker said this thing started from 2013. No, we have been following politics since 1999. Between 1999 and 2007, we witnessed very major political assassinations in this state, and we don't want to go back, to that era. Late Mashahari was assassinated, in the build-up to the 2003 election. Chief A.K. Dikibo was assassinated. I can go on and on. So that is what we want to avoid. Then in 2015, we saw an expansion, a scale-up to political violence. In 2019, we also saw it. 2019, majorly by security agencies, security personnel, And we are watching, like I said, we are documenting these issues. And at the end of the day, we're going to engage all actors.
Again, Senator, I will come to the National Orientation Agency, but again, if you begin to look at all of this, you've talked about the dancing, the songs. There's nothing wrong about dancing, and there's nothing wrong about singing in political campaigning. We've seen that even in advanced democracies. But again, the way we go about it and the way the masses themselves are calling for it, is this to show the mindset of the electorates here in Rivers State? Because they seem to be enjoying all of this.
What you are talking about here is context. We listed these songs and the dancing because of context. We're going to talk about context when we begin to look at the structures of political communication, especially if you want a conflict-sensitive communication in an electoral process. We're going to talk more about context and all of that. But dancing or singing is part of our culture here in our electioneering campaigns and all that. So we can't completely rule it out. But the context is very, very important. I'll give you an example. I will try as much as I can. I promised earlier that I don't want us to mention names because I want this discourse to be as neutral as possible.
Yeah.
But we have seen instances where certain key players of political parties during campaigns, come to campaign grounds with machetes. And they raise these war songs. As they raise the war songs, they dangle the machetes, And the moment they dangle the machetes, you see their followers, you see the crowd, suddenly, getting excited. And immediately what comes on them is, just give us order. Just give us instruction. We follow. So we don't want politicians to use songs to incite their followers. We don't want politicians to use certain dance steps or certain symbols to incite their followers. And that's the context we're talking about. So when you say dancing, when you say song, when you say, is it wrong to sing, and all of that, we are more interested in the context. The message the song is sending across. Because we're worried, we're also going to talk about the audience background when we talk about the structures of the political communication. So we are worried that usually political gathering is a mixed crowd. So the message you send across through your song, the symbols you use, such as machetes, the type of dance you dance. We know that there is a kind of dance you dance in a church. There is also a kind of dance you dance when you are going on a warfare. So these are the things, and I want us to really look at this.
Yeah, fantastic. We quite appreciate that, Sonny. And let me come to Ayo Tamina, which is of the National Orientation Agency. You have a very big task, and that is the National Orientation Agency. And one of your tasks is to educate the people on the proper and appropriate way. We of course, INEC has said September 28th, we'll commence campaigning, possibly for presidential and national assembly elections, and thereafter we'll be going into the governorship and state house of assembly, which is a very big one in Rivers. And we've seen what happened in the past. Now, when we begin to have these politicians displaying what we are seeing them display now, and we're not even in the campaigning period, how do we begin to rein them in from the point of view of the National Orientation Agency?
From the discussion is an interesting one. Talking about it, it is centered around issue-based politics. And actually, when I heard about the theme issue-based politics, I had to really reflect on it. What are we talking about when we talk about issue-based politics? What is issue-based in the first place? And how have the politicians, to what extent have they detracted from this issue-based politics? And so I think that is part of my interests. And going forward, you have raised issues of campaign. Even the politician that spoke here, even my brother here has also spoken about the issues of language, the issues of dancing, the issues of the words that are being used. And we are not just resting on our oars as an agency, we are also watching. We are also gathering as much information as possible. We have gone beyond the period when we say we're on the drawing board. We have actually been engaging with the civic populace in terms of making sure that they are not just caught in the web of whatever antics these politicians are bringing. Segun, I will tell you that no matter what a politician does, no matter his narrative, I know that he could influence his constituency one way or the other. But one thing is very clear, that whoever is doing that, he has just one vote. And that at the end of the day, it is the civil populace or the civic populace that is important, especially the electorate. And for us, our concern basically is with the electorate. Yes, in as much as we are concerned with also those who are vying for one position or the other and how they are going about their campaign. But I think our campaigns, talking about issue-based, has been to get the electorate to actually key into those issues, those narratives that these people are presenting before them. That's those who are vying for one political office or the other. The issues that they are putting before them, to properly interrogate those issues. And that has been our trust. You will recall that there have been a lot of issues that had been generated in the last, in the last 6 months, starting with the primaries. The issues that we saw in the primaries, the issue, vote for cash, and all that is part of the narrative. Presently, our worry is that whatever came out of the primaries, the people that the primaries have thrown up, that is those who are the candidates that are thrown up, eventually are those people that the electorate have to actually vote. So there has been a limitation of the civic space in terms of those to vote. We can't run away from the fact that the entire political process, pre-election, like he said, which has started, that it was monetized. And these are some of the concerns, the issues of vote buying, vote selling. Those are issues that for us are very, very key on how to go about them, and ensuring that the interest of the electorate is not compromised.
Well, fantastic. And I will still come back to you, but again, let me just come back to CLO again. But you have said something that is very, very critical, that if we take a look at some of the candidates of this political party, if we go through their background, Yes, some of them have a very civil disposition. In fact, some of them, they're intelligent people, well-read. Socially acceptable amongst all cadre of people. But again, some of the things they are beginning to display right now, is it all intended to move the people or to ensure that the people do not know what they have? For example, Kingsley Wale said something that it is not possible for you to talk about issue-based without faulting what the other people has done wrong. I'm talking about security and all of these issues. But I am thinking is that it is all about your ideology, not necessarily attributing blames. Maybe you clarify that to us.
Now, it's tricky. It's tricky, actually. But the truth of the matter is, I think to a large extent, I also agree with him. You can't talk about issues without properly situating them in their proper context. And that's what CLO is doing. We try to, as much as we can, point the way forward. And in pointing the way forward, we also give reasons why we should take a particular direction. And in giving reasons why we should look at a particular direction, we must refer to what may have, happened in the past. So that's why I said it's tricky. You can't really talk about issue-based campaign, without mentioning, some of the things that may have gone wrong. Because the essence of staying on issues is to ensure that we don't repeat the mistakes
but again,
of the past.
From what we've seen, I'm very sorry I have to cut you, but from what we've seen from other clients, even when they're saying what has gone wrong, they're profiling solutions.
That is the missing link here, and that's why I also want to commend you, from the way you really handle the first segment, because you keep coming back to what is the way forward, what is the solution, and that should be the focus, So here, what we do most is we look at the challenges, but you hardly hear us talk about solutions and all of that. And so if we're advocating for an issue-based campaign, it's important that we also remind politicians that yes, you are free to remind us where we are coming from, but you should also point a direction, to where we should go to, so that at the end of the day, we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. And it's important that we have this issue-based campaign because a lot of things are not really going well from our own estimation. For instance, if you look at the critical sectors in the state, River State is still a one-product economy, and we're looking at which of the candidates that can diversify the economy of River State. So if, as a politician, you're coming up with a campaign, we expect that you should address this. Fine, we know that it's a one-product economy, but how are you going to diversify, the economy of the state? River State has, according to NBS statistics, River State has 1.64 million unemployed young people. That is a challenge, but what are you going to do to bring these people, from unemployment, So these are the things we're talking about: education, health sector, building, construction, and all of that. These are the critical sectors. How are you going to improve, the Human Development Index in the state? These are the things we want to hear. How can you revive the moribund industries, to absorb, the army of bullfire youths into productive engagements and all of that? So issue-based campaign is very, very important, and it's we want to use this opportunity to call on politicians. They have still not released their manifestos, and we have made several calls. CLO has made several calls, and they want to use this opportunity to thank Super FM, because you have also been at the forefront. And most times when these statements are released, you are the first to usually break them on our behalf. So and a lot of politicians, keep telling us they're waiting for September 28th when the campaigns will start before they can unveil their manifestos. But we still think that it is already late. Where you have just 6 or 5 months now to the election. And by now, Rivers people ought to have, known who to vote for in terms of making decisions and all of that. It's very, very important. So politicians should stay on the issues. Reminding us of what may have happened is not wrong. But even in reminding us, we should avoid the use of some of the languages that we have documented, because if you're correcting someone and you are using abusive language, you're using denigrating languages and all of that, the person may not necessarily listen to that correction and all of that. So we should be civil in our communication, even though it's important that we have to remind us or tell us where we're coming from and show us the direction of where we're going to. So the key word here is the use of civil,
Fantastic. And that's a very good point you've raised there, which I'm going to ask the National Orientation Agency, because we need to respect the need for politicians to respect other politicians. And I will be coming to that. But quickly, let me go back to the telephone lines, because we have a whole lot of people that have been trying to join us. And we also have comments on our social media, and I'll take time to read some of them. The numbers to call again, 707050791021 and 08117431021. Now, Independent National Electoral Commission has indicated the need for issue-based campaigning. And we're saying, River State, we know our state. How can we begin to ensure that politicians give us issue-based campaigning, not necessarily apportioning blame, using base languages, innuendos, and dances that could be vexatious? How do we ensure that? Hello, good morning, and thank you for joining us. Point blank.
Good morning, Mr. Segun.
Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Otiasa Christian Livingston.
Good morning, sir.
And I'm calling you from Segun. Let me greet your guest in the studio, and also extend to greet your first guest that has left the studio. Segun, I was privileged to attend an inaugural lecture of Professor Ndu, and he said the problem of Nigeria in all sectors is discipline. And discipline is of two natures, the internal one and the external one. If the internal one fails, the external one, which is the state or its implementers, should be able to sanction those who have erred against the norm. Now, we can have a useful conversation, political conversation in campaigns without using all the base languages. But then, much is dependent on the Independent National Electoral Commission, number one, on the Nigerian police force, number two. Because if I say that Segun does this, verbals, very on factual claims, Segun should be able to say, when he has the opportunity, that I didn't do this. Christian said that, yeah, I did this, but I did not do this. He has mentioned my name. The issues are two types. There are some you can discuss without mentioning somebody's name. When you talk about diversification of the economy, you may not necessarily mention somebody's name. But if you want to say that, look, somebody burnt the banana farms. Somebody said that he saw people, a politician, gathering with lecturers to rig election. And that if I come, I won't accuse the person does not come back to refute that thing with facts, then we are not helping matters. If they will say that students were abroad and somebody jeopardized their future by now planning a good exit, I will be able to. The historicity of issues in every sector, be it in medicine and all that, is necessary for prognosing the matter and profiling solution. Having said that, we should be able to also sit down and give the facts, the figures, and the solutions, not just mentioning the challenges. Now, why this is important is because if we don't mention, the person probably will not know where he went wrong. The masses who are being fed, the electorates who are being fed, will not also know. They will be carried away by the emotions, not knowing that the emotions amount to zero. Now, the national orientation person, they have said that their emphasis is on the public voters. That may not be too correct, because the emphasis should be on the person who is feeding the public. The public will define, and the media will define the agenda, but who is feeding them with the violence? They come, no go green, you go green. Then, when posters are beginning to be torn, does the police keep one eye when party B poster is torn?
Christian, I'm sorry, you just have to let it go.
So the regulators must bite.
Okay, thank you so much, Kingston.
Default.
Thank you so much, Otiasa. We quite appreciate that. Let's take another one. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
I want to thank the last caller. Just 1 second. Let me turn down the radio.
Okay, your name, sir?
Sorry, my name is Kingsley Wenendawali.
Okay, Kingsley Wally, thank you so much.
Your last caller, I owe him a bottle of whatever he drinks. And why do I say that? I have said this at all occasions. Every occasion I've had the opportunity of that. The problem with Nigeria essentially is not religion, it's not corruption really in the true sense of it, but the absence of consequence. Now, like he said, the gentleman from NOA, yes, I agree principally with most of the things he said, but the fact that he's shifting the focus on the people, that's okay. But what happens to the people who violate the laws of this country without care? He talked about INEC. I agree 100%. He talked about police. I agree 100%. For example, Segun, you have been trying to moderate the views of your guest this morning about keeping a focus. We have not started campaigning. My dear brother, the Nigerian Bar Association invited politicians to come and meet, and politicians were on a national stage being watched by the international community, campaigning for votes long before the period for campaign. INEC did nothing. I'm not aware that INEC sent a letter to even warn them not to desist from such actions. If you listen to programs around it, watch TV every day, you will see politicians blatantly campaigning. INEC is not doing anything about it. The police is not doing anything about it. So that's why I said that the guy who just spoke now, I wish I could just know his name so that I can call him to let him come and speak to Nigerian people, Rivers people. These are the issues. The INEC is laid back. The function of the INEC is not to conduct elections alone, but to sanction people who have violated the electoral guidelines and the laws of this country. And they're not doing all of that. The police will just sit down idly and do nothing when people violate the laws of this country. People use languages that are likely to cause the breach of peace. And the police does nothing. So for me, those are the issues, really.
Yeah, fantastic.
Those are the issues. Those are the core issues.
Fantastic.
We can't hold the people responsible. The people who are making these statements are the people who should be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And this is beautiful. We're just tiring up a minute, but something that you and I have to agree because we need to expand this. But again, I will come to National. He has raised a very big issue here and says lack of consequences. But we also know that there are sections of the Electoral Act that is against this particular act we're talking about. Section 92, for example, it's very, very clear on it. So again, how do we begin to, just like you are doing, Sonny, that you're beginning to take records of some of these contexts, beginning to take record of some of these actions. But beyond that, how can we ensure that these politicians are penalized? Can civil society like yours sue them? Can you take them to court? Can you petition INEC on behalf of the people?
Now, as a matter of fact, I also want to commend the caller who talks about institutional strengthening. What the best way to go about it is to amend the enabling law, setting up INEC. Most times we have put so much on the doorsteps of INEC, and we don't understand that INEC is overburdened, presently. And that is why INEC is also advocating for the setting up of an electoral offense commission.
Yes.
And if you look at that bill proper, INEC is not going to be directly in charge of prosecution, because oftentimes INEC, in our engagements with INEC, they tell us, look, we're overburdened. If you look at elections, I was at I monitored the last election in Uganda. I was in Uganda when the last election was done. About 4 or 5 agencies were responsible for that election, and a lot of takeaways, even though we can say their democratic, you can't compare their democratic experience to ours, but in terms of the structures in place, you could say that, okay, we can also decentralize some of the things, some of the responsibilities we have committed to INEC. So we need institutional, strengthening. We need to strengthen INEC to be able to prosecute. For instance, look at what happened in Osun. I also monitored the Osun election. INEC admitted that, yes, they were vote buying. They saw a lot of persons buying and selling votes, but they couldn't prosecute. Rather, it was the EFCC that moved in and arrested some people, and that's because the enabling law does not categorically empower INEC to do some of these prosecutions. there was a prosecution they did in 2019. There was a professor they arrested in 2019 for electoral malpractice. It was just recently the professor was, INEC had judgment on the professor. So what we are saying is that for us to expect, if we must expect INEC or these institutions, to act, responsibly, we have to go back to the Justice Ways Commission, set up by late President Yaradua, who made far-reaching recommendations on how these institutions can be strengthened. In fact, if you look at those recommendations, this Electoral Offences Commission was part of that recommendation.
Yes.
And there was a recommendation that says the current appointive authority that appoints electoral commissioners should be taken away from the presidency to the National Judicial Commission. So if, for instance, if you appoint me, if I'm chairman of INEC or I'm an electoral commissioner in Rivers State, and I know that the person that appointed me is the president, and I go to the field and I'm seeing things that are in favor of the president, the man that appointed me, do you honestly think that I can move the way I should move? We have not evolved. Our the system, has not evolved to that kind of level where you can say, okay, look at America, for instance. Donald Trump is still being investigated till today. We have not evolved to that level. So our demands, our expectations from INEC should be toned down, and we should begin to look at the fundamentals. And what are the fundamentals? The enabling laws. What are the fundamentals? Who are the ones appointing electoral commissioners, INEC chairman? Who are the people making these laws? The lawmakers.
Fantastic.
So we should begin to look at this person, not the commission.
Fantastic. Now let me come to the National Orientation Agency. Unfortunately we just have about 2 minutes, and I just want you to try to put this in 2 minutes. The need for yes, I understand. The need for politicians to respect one another. And this is critical. And I want to know what National Orientation is doing. You've talked about the lecture. What about talking to the politicians themselves? I mean, I hear songs like "Since Their Mama Born Them, They Never Saw You." And I'm beginning to wonder, this is serious. So, National Orientation Agency.
No, we are already doing that. Okay. Just like you mentioned, the political system, the electoral system is regulated. We are very conscious of the fact that it is regulated by a timetable. The fears that you have expressed here, some of the fears that we have. The information is that it is not yet campaign time, but there's a lot of campaign going on. Rallies are ongoing, movements are ongoing, all of them in the political space. And these are some of the things that we think should actually be regulated. Usually, the contact is with what they call the IPAC, Inter-Party Advisory Committee. And the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, the platform for meeting with them is usually INEC, and sometimes ISES, which is the Inter-Agency Election Security Committee. And very soon, as activities begin to kickstart, I know that we'll begin to have an interface with them. But on our part, just like I mentioned, I will still emphasize that for now, our priority is to get at the grassroots towards ensuring that the people, the electorate, particularly those at the grassroots, towards ensuring that nobody hoodwinks them. All the dancing, all the songs, all the name calling, all the abusive words, whether you like it or not, politics is a game of interest, a game of intrigues. Politicians are using all kinds of subterfuge to get the voters to their side. But from our own perspective, that is why it is important that we conscientize the electorate. Let them not just be carried away by what the politicians are doing. These are things that we have seen, the narratives of our own political system over the years. So we need to continue, getting in touch with them, enlightening them that they shouldn't just be.
And of course, this you're going to do more in the coming days.
Yeah, this we'll do in the coming days. Just that, let me protest that you have not given me enough time in this program.
We will definitely bring you back, because you see, this is an issue that we will need to deepen. We will need to discuss this further. But again, I must thank you, National Orientation Agency, the State Director, National Orientation Agency, Ayo Terminal. We would have more forum to discuss this, and of course, we would even expand the discourse to bring in more members of civil society, and even the politician, and even the candidate of the political party. But again, I must also say a big thank you to CLO Sonny Dada.
I shouldn't.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. The time is really very short. But let me use these 30 seconds to speak to campaign managers.
Yes.
Campaign managers and the people responsible for communication policies for these political candidates. It's very important that your communication policy should be sensitive to the structure of the audience, the structure of the content, that is the messaging, be sensitive to the environmental dynamics. Where we begin to talk about context and all of that, I thought we would have time to discuss all of this.
Of course, I did say we'll bring it back again, but I'm sorry, we just have to go at this point. We bring all of them back because this is something big we're just starting. And thank you so much, CLO. Thank you so much, National Orientation Agency. And also big thanks to all those who've called to contribute to this. This is by no means the end of this particular topic. We will further the discourse and we'll be bringing in more stakeholders. It's Point Blank this Saturday. Join us next week. Good morning.